TV. Meet our guest today. Joining us is Bill Sugg. He is Bill Sugg III, to be exact. He is of West Point. He's an author. He's an illustrator of a children's book we've got today to talk about. Gibble the Goblin Has a Problem. Absolutely love the title. But he writes under the pseudonym Cad E. Wampus. So, Bill, do you want to go by Bill or do you want to go by Cad E. Wampus? Which one fits the bill today?
Bill, for our purposes, Bill's fine. I haven't quite fit into the name yet. I figure I'd grow into it eventually.
You grow into it eventually. I want to start there, though, because that's a lot of fun when you pick up the book and you look by and it says Cad E. Wampus. It gets a little giggle out of you automatically. So what led you to write under that fun pseudonym?
Well, a lot of people ask me that, and I wish I had a better answer than I just sort of came up with it. I knew I wanted to write under a pseudonym, and I wanted it to be a pun. I wanted it to be like a play on words and whimsical, but also Southern, right? And I compiled the list of about 300 names, and then when I hit on Cad E. Wampus, it was there. It was right there in front of me this whole time. But there it was. It reminds me of what I had a professor at Southern, an art professor, who he talked about creativity, and he said you'd really have to get going, and he would say get your RPMs up. In other words, do 100 drawings before you get that really good one, because you get your RPMs up. Yeah.
Oh, I love
So
that. Well, I like
that,
that you use the word whimsical, Bill, because looking through some of your other art, which you do pet portraits and drawing, and you did the illustrations for your children's book, which I think is extraordinary, that you wrote it and illustrated it, correct?
that's right. That's
They're
right. Yeah.
whimsical. Your characters are fun and they're bright and they're lively and they draw you in. And so to use the analogy of whimsical in the Cad E. Wampus, I see it really fits your sort of style. So you have your first children's book, The Gibble the Goblin Has a Problem, and I love it. So where did you get the inspiration for Gibble the Goblin?
Well, here too, I wish I had a better answer other than it just came to me, one day. I knew I wanted my first book to be about please. We can get into that later, but um, it just popped in my head is Gibble the Goblin Has a Problem. Like you said, it rolls off the tongue, and so that's where it came from.
And I know we don't want to give away the whole book, but you did bring up the fact that the word please plays a big part in the story. So tell us the story behind the word please as being inspiration for the words of the story or the actual story.
Yeah, well, I know that the topic of etiquette and saying please and being polite seems a bit vapid and overdone in children's literature. Uh, but not really when you look at um, what it really means to be polite. It's really about respect and common human decency. And that all sort of starts with please and thank you. It's something most of us Southerners knew from the moment we could start talking, with our yes, sir, and no, sir, and yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, all that stuff. It sounds better and you feel respected when you hear it. And it's good for kids to get that in the books they read. Yeah,
Well,
so
and that also helps them bring it into their own life in their own sort of, vocabulary. Yes, our household is big on that because that's the way I was particularly raised, even to the point now. There's many folks that go, oh, please don't call me ma'am or sir. And I'm like, it's kind of ingrained. If I don't, I feel like my mom's
yeah,
going to come out of, one of the sides and give me a little pop there. Maybe it's a
yeah.
traumatic experience from childhood. I'm not sure, but it worked. But it does
No,
during this particular season, Bill, I think being putting emphasis on just being kind and polite, we can all sort of take a little bit of advice from that because it can go a long way. If you're standing in the line just to say please, if someone went out of their way to help, or even if they just did their job but they did it with a smile, you returning that with a thank you could be everything that individual sort of needed to sort of keep going. in that way. Were your other characters in the book inspired by real life people, or how did they kind of come about? So,
No,
because you got some fun ones.
right. Well, thank you. Yeah, not really anyone real. I will say that the wizard, and some people have picked up on this, sort of uh, dripped in from my childhood. You may or may not remember a movie called The Sword and the Stone. It was a Disney movie. Yeah, and in it, Merlin is teaching young Ward, who will become King Arthur. And at some point in the movie, he just gets frustrated and leaves. And when he comes back in the movie, he's in full vacation Hawaiian shirt and things like that. And that image, I guess, sort of seeped into what this wizard is. Because some people have said that reminds them of that one scene from that one movie a long time ago. And
Well, he
the
definitely
others,
sticks out. He looks like a wizard I'd like to hang out with,
yes, yeah, same here. Yeah, maybe not in Hogwarts exactly, but somewhere.
but
Yeah.
somewhere. So, Gibble, when you were drawing out your I guess your characters, and I always love this of illustrators because it's like any other kind of artist. You have to have inspiration and see it in your head first, whether it's a song or, even just the story in the book, but also with illustrations. So when you were thinking about Gibble the Goblin, what did you know to be true? And then what were you like, what did you know not to be Gibble?
Really, only, and that's a good question actually. A big nose is about the only thing I knew he probably needed, maybe in big ears. That's about where I started, and I really try not to think too much about what it will look like because my professor, same guy, Mr. Mead, he would say that preconception is the death of art. And I know this is illustration and not exactly fine art, but you don't want to hem it in too tight at the edges. You really want to let it breathe and find out where it wants to go. So I just had a very general idea and went from there. And same with the name. I did a lot of drawings before I settled on a design I liked, and then had to perfect that drawing. So there's a lot behind each page.
How do you know, Bill, whenever, like one of your illustrations, I know you do a lot of pet portraits. That's a little easier because you're doing it off of a pet. So it's got to look, hopefully, like the pet in which you've been commissioned to do the portrait. But when it's a character like Gibble or your wizard, when do you finally sit back and put the pen down and go, that's it?
Oh, it's another good question. You just sort of know, I guess, is the only way I can put it there. And even then, there's you come back and look at it. What I tend to do with this or any other art is when I think I'm finished, I put everything down and walk away. Maybe for the night, maybe for a few hours, and just kind of try and forget about it, and then come back to it a while later and look at it new. And when I leave it, I'm satisfied with it. And then when I come back, I might be a completely different mindset and say, nope, this doesn't work. That doesn't work. You know, got wrapped into it. You have to sort of step back and look at things from a fresh perspective.
Is it hard to draw the same character doing different things to look the same? Because does that make sense? Because or maybe if you've
No,
I don't know
no,
if you've
no.
got like the digital to be able to do it, but I would say I can't draw, but if I could, I was like I could get Gibble for the front cover, and then I don't know if I could
Hmm.
replicate Gibble again and again and again and again.
Yeah. Well, no,
That's why I don't have the
absolutely. The
job.
answer is right. No, yeah, that's absolutely right. I here again. I once I had what I thought I wanted. I drew him over and over again, and then I found that there were certain areas where I was able to replicate again and again. For example, if I put the eyes in a certain place, the nose would be in this place every time, and then, you know, the
Be able to
ears
do it
and
over and
whatnot.
over. Well, Gibble the Goblin
Right.
has a
And then I drew it
problem.
in different
And
faces.
you say
I
that
went
it's
through and
using
I
the
did
word
sad.
please. So, Bill, I'm going to ask you to please hang on. We're going to get more with you coming up. Talk TV. We're continuing our conversation with author and illustrator Bill Sugg of West Point. He wrote the book Gibble the Goblin Has a Problem, but this is your first children's book of two, correct, Bill? Do you have the second one out yet, or is just this the first one that's out?
That's the only one that's out. My second one is currently in the long and arduous process of querying. Yeah, querying
I was going to say
agents.
that's a big
Yeah, it's a
word on
difficult.
a Thursday, Bill. So, what does that mean?
Well, I mean that's the industry word. That's what they ask you to do. Is it just basically send in a query letter to an agent or publishing company and say, "Hey, I've got this book. What you want? Would you like it?"
Would,
And
would you like it? Is it still Gibble, or is
yeah,
it a continuation of Gibble's story, or is it another sort of
it's
or totally
completely
different?
different thing. Yeah, totally different. And now for something completely different, like Monty Python. Yeah.
Ah, pretty cool. Okay, you have a very interesting, I guess, career or professional path. If you don't mind, we get into that. Author and illustrator is not the only piece to your eclectic, I guess, professions. You have just moved back to West Point, I guess the last, year or less than a year from living abroad. What took you out of Mississippi and overseas for so long?
Well, many left turns and a few right ones, I guess. I, I during college, I ended up working in Yellowstone National Park, which I recommend everybody should do. If they can, just spend a summer out there. It's an amazing country. Um, and I knew going out there that that was where I was supposed to be. I just knew. I didn't know what I was going to do, but that's where I was going to be. What I didn't know is like that's not where I was going to stop. I, met a girl, fell in love, and followed her to her hometown, which happened to be in Taiwan. So that's where I've stayed for 15 years and taught English to speakers of another language, to little kids. And, that's something that helps write children's books is the fact that I've
Mm-hmm.
read lots of children's books to kids. And it was wonderful. I was pretty good at it, but one particular day I just knew that this is not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, as much as I liked it and was good at it. So
Made another
go with
change, one
what
of
you
those
were.
left, right turns. Bill, what was it
Yeah.
like growing up in Mississippi? Obviously, you visited, I guess, another sort of demographic that would be the kind of same Yellowstone kind of outdoorsy kind of place that didn't go all the way to something completely new and different. I mean, that takes a lot of courage to do that. I mean, love will make you do crazy things, I know, but but what was it like? Just
Yeah.
completely culture shock from every sense of the imagination.
Well, that's the funny thing. Everybody says it must have been a huge culture shock. The biggest shock was living in a big city. I mean, there are 12,000 people at the time, maybe 9,000 people in West Point, and I moved to a city of 5 million, and that was like within seconds, within a day, whatever the flight plan was. But yeah, so that was the biggest shock for me. I was living in a huge city. Of course,
Any
then we spent.
barbecue, fried fish, any sweet tea, anything of that over there?
Yes, all of those things. So some people have probably heard of because it's made its way over here. They call it boba tea, right? Which is
Hmm.
pretty popular in America. I understand. Well, I first found it over there, and I'd never heard of it. And I was like, this would be really popular in the States if it ever crossed. And obviously, it did eventually. Uh, Sweet tea is big over there. Sweet drinks, things like that. And let me tell you, Rebecca, fried chicken is huge in Taiwan, and they do it.
Really?
Uh, you know, they do it better than we do. I hate to say it, but they do. Fried chicken is everywhere in little stands, and it's really good. Like
It
lots of
goes to
different little
show
vendors.
you we are more alike than we are different, right, Bill?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I found a
S-
lot of similarities between Southerners and Taiwanese. As much as being in the big city, they're pretty laid back. Even more so in the southern part of the island. But politeness also being a big thing there.
Mm-hmm. But
So
so you came back home, Bill. You came back to West Point about 6 months ago. Has that been a shock going from a big city of 5 million, even though you know what home is like, to now be back in your cozy town of West Point?
yeah, huge shock, massive. It took me many months to readjust. Um, it's, uh, it took my body longer to adjust than anything else. But yeah, no, it was huge. I got addicted to the convenience of the big city life, and public transportation and all these things. Um, do not miss the heat. It was hot and humid over there. That makes Mississippi seem like a dry heat at best. You know,
Really?
I know. Everyone's shocked when I say that, but yes, I mean, considering its place on the planet, a little bit closer to the equator, it's much hotter and more humid.
You are the only person I have ran across in the last 4 to 6 weeks that would say, y'all got it good here. This is better than
No, no,
than it could
absolutely.
be.
Yeah, no, it's all relative. It's all relative.
What's the
Yeah.
time difference there? I know it takes the body like a long time to adjust. You mentioned, Bill. What's like what time or day even is it right now in Taiwan?
Let's see if it's 2:30 in the afternoon. It'd be about 3 a.m. the next day. 3:30 a.m. the next day there.
So
It's
it's
about
TGIF
13
there.
to 14. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like early in the morning, TGIF. Yeah.
That
So
is so interesting.
no,
So there never know where your life is going to take you, sort of next, Bill. Do you feel like your family is here in Mississippi for a while?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, my own immediate family that I've been able to develop and make is certainly here, but all the others are here, and that was part of the reason for coming back, to be honest. So yeah, I think we're here for immediate future, and might go back to Taiwan one day in the distant future, assuming Taiwan's still Taiwan. But yeah,
Well,
that is.
we're glad that you're back. We always welcome home those that go off and travel, but Mississippians somehow find their way coming back home. Your wife, though, so you met her though in Yellowstone, and then you
That's
moved to
right.
Taiwan to be with her family. Is this her first 6 months in the SIP?
Yes, yes. She's been here occasionally, for trips and things, but yeah, she's adjusting to life here and whatnot. Only recently got her license, so she's now having to, you know,
Do they drive
drive
in
in Mississippi and
Taiwan?
finding
If they
that.
do they drive on the same side of the road? Like, is it a different? Because that would blow my mind if I had to go somewhere and try
Yeah,
to do
no,
things differently.
yeah. I went to Japan once, and it's on the other side of the road, and yeah, I couldn't flip over in my head. But no, they drive on the same side of the road, and she drove most of the time when we needed to go somewhere out of the city. But
Hmm.
for the most part, public transportation's the way to go, and she's finding it much easier here. Drivers are actually a little more polite, believe it or not, here in the States, and roads are bigger. There's less cars, just because there's more space. But
Well, I have to say, our keen eye and our lover of all things Asian culture, Rhino, picked up on some of your nods in the book to the home that you just left. So leave that for the readers to sort of look through and find. Speaking
ah,
of your readers, Bill, where can they get your works? Where can they get Gibble the Goblet? I mean, Goblin, excuse me, has a problem.
well, I've got a newer version that's a little bigger and nicer, and that's available on bookbabyshop.com.
All righty.
And
And
yeah,
then if they
they're a
want,
self-publisher.
we didn't even get into your pet portraits, but you do those. I assume are those on commission? And where can folks go and look and see it at all of your great work?
Well, then go to the website, www.cadewampus.com, all one word. Yeah, and find it there, and have an email, um, and we can talk via email and work out all the particulars and whatnot. this weekend, actually, in Prairie Arts, I'll be setting up a booth, and I'll be taking commissions there as well.
All righty. We had Middays that was just there gearing up for the Prairie Arts Festival there in West Point, which brings out a large
I
crowd. Will
know.
you have a specific booth anywhere, Bill? Like, where will you be in
I
the
will.
festival?
I will. I'm actually co-hosting a booth with my sister-in-law, and she'll be selling some of her sensory toys, and I'll be selling my books and a little bit of goblin merch, and taking up pet portraits in Kidstown area of Prairie Arts. It's over there next to the library. Yeah,
Good
next to the
deal. Well,
playground.
Bill, I appreciate your time. I love Gibble. You'll have to let us know when your next book gets released. You're always welcome back.
I will.
And